Well, we can detect, I think, lots of common threads in all these Balkan countries. And first of all, I mean, journalists and media are not in that bad position as they were in the 90s in the whole region, but it has affected the current situation a lot. And I'd say that political and economic elites have found more sophisticated forms of influencing media nowadays. So we don't have the cases of killing journalists as it was the case in the 90s, but we have more sophisticated forms of political and economic elites actually controlling the entire media scene through advertising and through the ownership, media ownership. Meaning that if we try to detect common threads in all the Balkan countries, it would first of all be non-transparent media ownership and also states ownership in the media, which is then a serious threat for media pluralism, as it's jeopardizing media concentration. Actually, comes as a result of it. The second common thread would be probably states' influence on the media, which is mostly done through advertising, because in most of the countries we have the case that state is the biggest advertiser, either through its official institutions, ministries and other state bodies, or through state companies. So, for example, in Serbia we have the case that public companies, state companies, do not want to advertise in media which are, let's say, opposition media, which is why those media have to either adopt or literally die out. And the third common thread would be poor legislation. We have to say that again, because some countries have tried to implement media strategies but failed to do so, or are in the process of doing so, because all of them want to join the EU one day and are trying to align their legislation with the EU standards. But it's not really going that great from what we can see, because laws are mostly copy and pasted, with not actually introducing some specific things which are that determine that media system of that country. And the fourth thread, I'd say, and also we have some media laws which are not that bad. I have to also say this, that they are not that bad but are not implemented. And we can't have, so we have the case that all these countries are adopting such media laws which are in line with the EU, but then are not being implemented afterwards. So on the paper everything looks fine, but then in reality that is not really the case, which is why there should be some mechanism established, I think, which could actually, from grassroots organizations, from bottom to top, to try to force regional governments to really implement the adopted laws, but also from Brussels, because I have a feeling that all these governments are actually only listening to what Brussels is saying. So if Brussels would have a bigger role in this, together with all these grassroots and civil society organizations, that it could have a bigger effect on improving the entire media scene and the laws, first of all. And the fourth thread, I think, is poor protection of journalists and poor weak journalist associations, and lack of journalist unions. Because what we can see in all these countries, that journalists don't have anyone to stand behind them if they really, if they even try to do something. So those would be those four common threads, I think.